I've slowly been building up a collection of Japanese Elvis cassettes. They're surprisingly hard to find. Most of the ones that I have are from 1977 to 1985, and that was a period where initially you could get cassettes and LPs, and then later on from the mid-80s it was possible to get an album on CD and cassette, and in some cases LP as well. At the end of the video I'll be showing a couple of very rare promo cassettes that I recently picked up. But let's go back to 1977 first of all. This is a Japan-only cassette. It's called Rock and Roll Album, and it contains 24 50s songs, well, 23 50s songs and one early 60s songs, Stuck on You. The LP is much more impressive to look at. It has the same photo on the front there, but it's obviously a lot more effective in 12-inch size. And there's the back cover. All the songs are there in English, and because it's a double, you get a nice gatefold sleeve as well. All those photographs come from the photo session that produced the All Shook Up single cover. On to the 1980s now, and this one here, Guitar Man, comes from 1981. I quite like the design of the slipcase here with the close-up photo of Elvis and the title in this red strip here. The Japanese title of this album is actually Guitar Man New Edition, and if you were buying this as a Japanese person back in the 1980s, back in 1981, you would have wanted to know what the heck this new edition was all about, and that is actually explained in the yellow part at the top there. It explains that it's Elvis's original vocals with new overdubs. And on the back of the slipcase there, it tells you that the first song is Guitar Man, understandably. But if you look at the cassette itself, hopefully you can see that, the first track on side 1 is actually listed as Guitar Man, What I Say. And Japanese cassettes came with an insert with the lyrics on. Sometimes they have liner notes as well. And again, on the insert here, you can see the title of the first track there is Guitar Man, What I Say. The LP artwork is very similar to the American version. It's on the orange RCA label. I think when I bought it in England back in the 80s, it was on a blue label. And once again, you might be able to see there, the first track on side 1 is Guitar Man, What I Say. Referring, of course, to the extended outro in that song where Elvis suddenly bursts into What I Say. And the lyric sheet also has the same title, referring to both songs, and Japanese on the other side. The next one I have is a Japan-only compilation, also from 1981. This is called Love Songs. And if you look closely at this slipcase, you can see one of the disadvantages of this kind of packing, and that is because it's not wrapped in cellophane anymore, it's got a little bit of rubbing on the front and sides and back. The LP cover uses the same photograph of Elvis, but just turned it the other way around. And I do like this cover. It looks very much like a woman's room, and there's the photograph of her lover in a frame. Here's another picture of him that he sent in a love letter. Bunch of roses here that he sent her, and on the back you have the telephone close up and in focus, hinting at many of the darker love songs that Elvis sang. And in fact, there's only really one out and out I'm in love and happy about it song on this album, and that is Mary in the Morning. It's mainly later period Elvis songs. There are 6 songs from the 1970s, a couple from the late 60s, love letters from the mid-60s, a couple from the early 60s, and the inevitable Love Me Tender from 1956. And it comes with the usual Japanese insert. This one is 4 pages with all the lyrics on the inside. Slightly unusual liner notes to this one in that they don't discuss each and every song. It's basically an essay on how many of Elvis's love songs are actually about heartbreak. By the time of the 50th anniversary series in 1985, many of the albums were available in three formats, cassette and LP, but of course the new CD format. This is a very rare cassette from that period, Reconsider Baby. And unlike the Love Songs cassette we just looked at, this one is still actually in its original cellophane. It appears to be still sealed with the pull tag down here still on, but in actual fact the original owner has opened up the CD from the bottom. You've just got to be careful with this kind of packaging that the cassette doesn't fall out. And another good thing about the slipcase packaging is that you can actually use the back side there to show the original LP artwork or something similar to it. Even as late as 1985, the cassettes were still made like this, with the paper labels and the screws in the corner. And once again, you get the insert with lyrics and so on. The Japanese CD version of that album is very hard to find. And from the same series and the same year, 1985, is the Rocker cassette. This one doesn't have the cellophane, but the slipcase is still in really nice condition. The labels are a sort of a tan type color on this one. And I do also have the CD from 1985 for this one. And I wasn't sure about buying this one. I wasn't going to buy it, but it's actually the first of a series of 10 CDs, and it's actually the last one that I bought in the series. So in the end, I decided to buy it. As you can see at the top there, it's got the 50th anniversary logo. So this is from 1985. And this one has one of the first type of obi that they used on these RCA CDs. Fold under obi. So you can see that it folds under the jewel case. And the CD has that blue disc, blue lettering that they used at that time. Not much to see as far as packaging goes. The insert there, the cover insert, is just 4 pages, but it's blank on the inside. And then you get the usual Japanese insert with liner notes and lyrics. I'll briefly show you the other 9 CDs in that series because I've got all of them. There's the first one, or the second one after Rocker, the first album. And they're all packaged in the same way with that 4-page insert, blank in the middle, fold under obi, and the Japanese insert. The next one is Elvis. All the obis have different colors as well. Next one is Golden Records. This was the second time this CD had been released in Japan. The first one was in stereo. This one is back in mono. In fact, all the 50s albums, all the 50s titles are in mono. Gold Records Volume 2. And then we skip all the 60s albums and go right to That's the Way It Is from 1970. Then we have On Stage. In Person. And the reason why they're in that order, reverse order basically, is because in Japanese those albums were known as Elvis On Stage Volume 3, 2, and 1. In fact, if you look on the obi there, you can see Volume 1 in English. Okay, the 9th title in the series was Madison Square Garden. And the last one, going back to the 60s. Any idea what this one is? The only album from the 60s. It was Blue Hawaii. In fact, you might have seen this in an earlier video I did. So that was the first Elvis series of CDs released in Japan from 1985. And finally, a couple of promos. Finally, a couple of promo-only cassettes that I promised at the beginning of the video. And here is the first one. You can see that by this point, they had done away with the slip cases and they were using standard J cards. This is all in Japanese. Maybe a bit of a hint there on the spine. You can see it says 50s there. And this is actually a cassette, a promo cassette from the Rock and Roll King of Rock and Roll box set, Complete 50s Masters. In fact, there you are. It's in English at the top there, the King of Rock and Roll. And this is actually cassette number 4 from that box set. And you can see the number 4 there in a circle. And you might be wondering, well, why didn't they just make a promo CD? And there's a very good reason for that, because the King of Rock and Roll, the Complete 50s Masters, was only released in Japan as a repackaged import. They imported the European and American sets and added a nice Japanese booklet and a Japanese obi and sold it that way. So presumably the easiest way to promote it in Japan was by making a cassette. And the next one that I have, the last cassette to show you today, is also a promo only, and it's quite similar to the previous one in that it's from a box set. This one is actually from the Essential 60s Masters box set, and this is cassette number 3, which corresponds to CD 3, I believe. And once again, that box set was not manufactured in Japan. They simply imported the American sets and repackaged them with a nice booklet and Japanese obi. So there you go, a bunch of cassettes, CDs and LPs from 77 to 85. Any questions, drop them in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Cheers.